Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, November 8th, 2017 episode of Free Webinar Wednesdays. This is Eric Cook. I'm with WSI Digital Marketing, where we work with businesses and organizations, helping better understand and leverage the power of the internet as a strategic business tool. You can learn more about me and WSI online at poweredbywsi.com. With me this week is my good friend, Free Webinar Wednesday co-founder, partner, all-around great guy, Mr. Jeff Simpkins. Jeff, say hello to everybody out there in Free Webinar Wednesday world.
Greetings, everybody. This is Jeff Simpkins, and I am with Community Bank Consulting, Inc., and you can learn more about me online at www.communitybankconsulting.com.
Sweet. So we've taken a couple of weeks off while we were gallivanting around the countryside. Where's life taken you over the last couple of weeks, Jeffrey?
Over the last couple weeks.
Didn't mean to make it such a difficult question. Do you remember what you had for breakfast?
I do. I just glanced back over my calendar. I have actually stayed in town and had lots and lots and lots of stuff going on over the last couple weeks.
Cool. Well, good stuff. Well, I'm going to bring over a little Google Photos album, which I love, by the way. If you're not using Google Photos, you really need to, because it works across all platforms. It's free. It does some really cool stuff with regards to helping you identify people in your pictures and cloud storage. So a little Google Photos plug there. But I actually, excuse me, had the privilege of being in Kansas City last week, and I presented for the Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines, which had their meeting in Kansas City. And the session that I presented at was for their member advisory panel. And so before they started their official conference, they had the member advisory panel come in, and they went off site for their meeting, and they had it in Kansas City at the World War I Museum and Memorial. And that was pretty awesome. So I got out the old Pixel. You can see I got my 360 camera, doing some 360 pictures of some of the exhibits, and holy smokes, it was a pretty cool thing. Didn't know a ton about World War I. Not that I know a lot about World War II or any of the other wars, but yeah, that was a pretty awe-inspiring event. Actually had a tank with a video that was rolling that showed how people would get into this little turret thing and how it would be driven. And boy, you want to talk about the very early stages of modern warfare. There's, I said to one of the other bankers that was there, I said, quite a difference between today's warfare, where they basically pilot drones from Las Vegas to fly and spy and do all the other stuff that they do. So this was definitely down and dirty, right in your face. But trench warfare, the weapons that they used, just the conditions, boy, it was a really humbling experience to be there. So if you're ever in Kansas City, Missouri, I would strongly suggest you take an afternoon at least and make your way to the World War I Museum, because that was really a pretty cool experience.
They have a trench that you could go into in the museum.
They didn't have a trench that you could go into, but they had some exhibits, and I'll see how this comes up in a live view. They had like a blown out area that was representative of not really a foxhole, but like when a bomb goes off, kind of what it looks like, and the different shrapnel that's there and all sorts of other stuff. And then they had a couple of other areas where you could peek your head through a little hole. It was kind of hard to get a photo of it, but you could peek your head through a hole, and it gave you some perspective on what a trench looked like. But it was kind of interesting when they talked about building the trenches, how there was a very strategic, so you couldn't take a gun and shoot it right down the trench and kill everybody. They had different crooks in it and connectors, and a lot more engineering goes into what they were doing back then than maybe what you just kind of assume. They just build a bunch of trenches and hide in them. So lots of big guns and mortars and other sorts of cool things. So here's kind of an example of one of the trenches with the sticks and then the bags and whatnot. So very cool. So whether you're a history buff or not, I think it definitely deserves to be on your list if you're going to be close to the Kansas City area. It's certainly an experience you won't forget. Take lots of pictures because you can't catch it all. And we only had a short period of time before we had to, the museum closed. So I took a lot of pictures of just text and whatnot. I've been going back through and just reading that because I didn't have time to read it, but I wanted to know what it was. So I just took photos. And luckily with today's camera technology, you've got pretty good capability of just reading the text, even if it's a picture that you've taken from a little ways away. So all good stuff. Cool. So that's where I was. So before we jump in, I think I forgot to mention the general housekeeping items. So those of you that are joining live, thank you for joining live. We appreciate you being here. And if you've got a question or a comment or something that you'd like to share, feel free to use the chat function in your GoToMeeting panel and let us know. And today's show and all shows are recorded and made available up at freewebinarwednesdays.com. So when Jeff and I were talking about what we wanted to cover today, I am in the process of putting together a little mini presentation for my WSI colleagues. And next week, during our open forum, there was the request. You got a phone call, Jeff. There was a request to share some of the, tell him I said hi, share some of the tools that I've used as a consultant that are either free or practically free and cheap, that do fun stuff or add productivity or help keep in contact. And we've talked about a number of these before. Some of these we might not have talked about, but I thought it would be kind of fun to walk through some of the items. And for any of my WSI colleagues that might be either attending live or listening to this on replay, you might hear some of this next Thursday. So I apologize if there's a little bit of repeat, but I'm looking at the attendee list and it doesn't look like we've got any crossover at this point. But these are some of the tools that I continue to rely on. And even if you've heard a session similar to this from a tools perspective, I think the fact that I'm still using the tool, and if there's some of the ones that you'd like to share as well, Jeff, I think that's a testament. I know there's a couple of tools that I've actually stopped using, not because I don't like them anymore, but I just wasn't using them, or I've got something else in place that's replaced it. But the first tool that I use every single day, multiple times a day, is Boomerang for Gmail. And this is a tool, and if you've got Outlook, it works for Outlook as a plugin. But this is a tool that I would say you can take it when you pry it from my cold, dead hands. I absolutely love this tool. And I know the Google email inbox has tried to replicate some of this functionality, and at some point they might very well be able to replace this, and the necessity for Boomerang is no longer there. But I know people that are using Google's inbox that has some of the functionality here, and based off of some of the comments and the things that inbox doesn't have, I'm convinced that this is still the best tool to use to manage your inbox. So you've not heard me talk about Boomerang before. This is a little plugin that works alongside Gmail, and we're a G Suite shop, but again, it works with Outlook as well. and it sits in your email program. And when you create an email for somebody, you have additional functionality that gives you the ability to say, I want this email to come back to me at some point in the future. And I want this email to come back to me based off of some activity that the recipient either did or didn't take at some point in the future. So I can send Jeff an email and I can say, if Jeff doesn't open this email in the next 3 days, I want Boomerang to send me a reminder to say, hey, touch base with Jeff. Or I just maybe want to say, send this back, Boomerang it to me in 3 days, because I just want to make sure that I don't forget to follow up with Jeff. I've sent Jeff a proposal. I've provided him with some information. Maybe there's a potential lead that I wanted to get to him or a project that I'd like to work with him on. I can send him that information. I can say, Boomerang, remind me on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. because that's when I'm going to be diving in and getting caught up from the week. And I know that that email is going to come back to my inbox and it's going to be there at Saturday at 10 a.m. I've also got, through the Boomerang system, the ability to schedule an email to go out at a later date or later time. So if it's Sunday night and I'm wrapping up some emails and trying to get through my inbox and I don't necessarily want to be sending everybody emails at 10 o'clock on a Sunday evening, I can set those emails up and I can say, send this out Monday morning at 6 a.m., at 5 a.m., at 8 a.m., at 10:30. And I can keep those up and they wait in my outbox, and then Boomerang automatically delivers those when I've told it to be delivered. And so it is a tremendous tool from a productivity perspective. I would love to say because I'm using it, I never miss an email, and that would be a lie because I do miss emails. But I can tell you I miss a whole lot fewer of them because of Boomerang being part of my Gmail inbox. And I've actually created in Gmail a filter that automatically puts a label in my inbox for any Boomerang messages so that they jump out. So when I look at my inbox and I've got a couple of thousand emails or more in my inbox, because I am nowhere close to inbox 0. I would love to do that. But I can very easily look at my inbox and I can say anything that's a bright red label, this is something that I need to take a look at because it's come back as a result of this Boomerang. And so Boomerang has come back and it's told me, hey, you need to pay attention to me. So now I can see, oh, that's right, I was supposed to talk to Jeff. It's been 3 days. I don't have an email back from Jeff. So now I can send Jeff an email or I can pick up the phone. I can make a phone call. Absolutely love it. And I think I started with the free version. The free version worked really well and got to the point where I had enough emails and reminders that I was using that I couldn't use the free version. And I have pulled the trigger and I now have the paid version. So, so you can kind of get an idea from a pricing perspective. This gives you some ideas, and I think I'm just using the $4.99 one, if I'm not mistaken. Although I may have actually bit the bullet, quite honestly. I'd pay for it as long as it's not like a huge amount. But this is one that's got so much functionality for me. I'm happy to pay this, and quite honestly don't even really worry a whole lot about what the cost is because I know it's bringing me really, really good value. So do you use anything like this, Jeff, or how do you keep track? Or maybe you're one of those lucky people that has been able to achieve inbox 0 and you just got a really good handle on your email, and God bless you if you do, but that ain't me.
Well, I use the multiple inbox feature in G Suite. So I've got a primary social, promotions, updates, and forums inbox, but I really consider the primary inbox to be the one I need to keep as close to empty as possible. And
yep,
I only have 21 in there right now, so
oh my God,
do a pretty good job. The tool I use that's similar, it's not quite as proactive as Boomerang, and I've tried Boomerang before. You and I have agreed over the years the best tool for you is the tool that works for you. What works best for me is a product called Todoist, Todoist. It's got plugins that I can use with Gmail, and it creates a to-do list with reminders and aging and things like that.
Cool. I remember you talking about that. So, and that's, didn't they start primarily as an iOS app, if I'm not mistaken? And you said they've got Android now. But for some reason, I was thinking this was maybe an iPhone functionality that then has since grown and decided to accept those of us on the Android market.
I actually don't know. I don't remember. I've had it. I may have had it long enough that I've renewed for another year. So
yeah,
I've been using it for quite a while.
Good. The one area that Boomerang falls short that I would really love and they have an app, but I'll tell you, it's not a really great one. And I've tried it a couple of times. Maybe it's gotten better. But the area where they seem to not be as convenient for me is if I'm on a mobile device. So I pull up my phone, I see an email, I want to send Jeff a note, and I want to be able to boomerang that back in 3 days so that I remember to send Jeff an update, a follow-up, whatever the case is. I also have, and I'm using the free version of this because I don't use it very often, but I'm using the free version of a service called Nudge Mail. And this is a really great service. You don't even have to create an account. All you do is you send your email to the platform that tells Nudge Mail that, hey, I'm an email address that is interested in using your service. And then when you use the service, all you simply have to do is put a command in front of the @nudgemail.com, and Nudge Mail will recognize that it's coming from Powered by WSI, for example, and it will basically follow the command that you've given it. So you can say tomorrow, so it'll come back tomorrow at 1:20 p.m. Or I can say 1D, and that will wait a 24-hour period that also comes back. Or I can say 2D, or 12 hours, or 1 week. And what I normally will do in that instance is if I'm sending Jeff an email and I want to make sure that this comes back in 3 days, I'll go to the blind copy field in my email, and in the BCC, I'll put 3D for 3 days at nudgemail.com. And so rather than waiting to get back to my computer to respond to Jeff to make sure that he gets my response and I can properly put it in the Boomerang system, I do the 3D at Nudge Mail, and that tells Nudge Mail that I want this email to come back, or I want a nudge in 3 days. And so it doesn't give me all of the message details. Like with Boomerang, it comes back, I can interact and respond to it natively. So there's a little bit of work that you have to do when the email gets responded or it gets bounced back to you with Boomerang. But at least I know if I'm out and about, it's a quick and easy way. And a lot of the, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, those are things that I've done enough in my email on my phone where I can just do 1D and it does automatically complete, and it just completes the whole at nudgemail.com. So I have to type it all out either. So this is a cool little service that you can use. And again, unless you're going to be using it a lot, it's free to use. So, and let's see. Yeah, it looks like they've actually moved
a different name at some point.
I don't believe so.
I think you've used this one for a long time.
I have, yeah. And I used this actually before I started using Boomerang. So, yeah. So they say they want to make it available for free. They've got opportunities to kind of pay what you want. So you don't have to use it if you don't want to. They give you some extra little bennies here And so you can kind of give them some, oh my freaking gosh. I'm sure that's what that stands for, right? Oh my freaking gosh, plan. So you can pay them if you would like to, but I'm still using the free. And, you know, if I use it a dozen times a week, that's a heavy week for me, because most of the stuff I'm able to just take care of. But if I do want to make sure that I get a reminder, it is nice to have a quick and simple, easy way of using a reminder email, and it pushes out. But the Boomerang really caught me with its capabilities of conditional response backs. It had the ability to schedule email to be sent out later. So I switched over to Boomerang, but I still keep Nudge Mail as a follow-up. Next, shall we move on? My next item. It's a little program called Evernote. And I've talked about this before. I've tried other platforms. I've done Pocket and other little snipping tools. And I keep coming back to Evernote for, I guess, a couple of reasons. So if you're not familiar with Evernote, it's a program that you can use either on the web. You can download the app. You can download the Chrome app or the iOS app, or the desktop app. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. And it says they're kind of making Evernote your second brain, and they're using the elephant as their icon because the elephant never forgets. But at the concept of Evernote, they allow you to create and categorize things called notebooks. And you can add notes into these notebooks that can be a variety of different things. You can do an audio file, you can do a drawing, you can take a picture, you can clip an article off of the web that gives you the ability to save that later, and you can categorize things using tags and other sorts of labels that help you find information faster down the road. And so the way I use Evernote is I'm browsing around the internet, and you can see I've got the Chrome extension installed on my browser as well. If I hop out and I go to an article, and here's an article on Facebook, for example, I can go and I can pull up the article and, like Jeff, speak at conferences and present on information. And so I go over here, and here's an article on Sprout Social, and it's about Facebook and automation. Maybe this is something that I want to speak on, or I'm building a presentation. I simply go up to my little Evernote clipper, and what I get now is the ability to save that article a variety of different ways. So you can see I can kind of snip the article out. I can make it simplified, where if I wanted to PDF this later on, it would be a really nice. And over time, Evernote realizes, or it recognizes, when I pull up articles, what maybe a suggested tag would be. So Evernote has learned that when I pull up an article on Facebook or social media, there's probably a pretty good chance that I'm going to want to dump that into presentation material. So it sees the article and it says, I'm going to stick it in presentation material. But I can also say, well, this article is about Facebook. It's also about automation. So maybe I'll tag marketing automation in there. And then I've got a variety of notebooks, and I could default just save it to my regular notebook. So think of this as, you know, your books on the shelf. Or I could pick and I could dump it into Google Analytics, or if I wanted to dump it into a particular notebook that I wanted to go after, or maybe this is confidential, I could put it in here. But I can grab all this, I can add a little remark. So this is my digital scrapbook, if you will, and say, you know, this would be a great article to share with my marketing friends. So if I could type. And so now I can go ahead and I can click and I can save that. And you can see it's synchronized. And I paid for the premium version, which is like $49 a year or something. And that gives me the ability to synchronize all these articles across multiple devices and have access to them offline. So when I open up my iPad and my Evernote application synchronizes, this entire article gets loaded directly into my iPad. And if I'm on an airplane, I don't have internet connectivity, I can go in and I can tap on that little article, I can pull it up and I can read that entire article offline because Evernote synchronized my entire reading library with my device. And I've got access on my Android phone, on my iPad, on my computer. Just makes it really, really easy to gather information and use that as a repository for stuff. So if I go in and let me see, open up my little app here for Evernote itself, and I'll pull this over so you can take a quick little peek at it. But if we go in and we take a look, here's the article that I recently clipped, and you can see it's doing some synchronization because it realizes that I've added some stuff. So here's an article that I found on LinkedIn and how it's integrating a lot of the LinkedIn data that it now knows about people into Outlook and other Microsoft products, which is one of the reasons why I really think people need to be paying close attention to what's going on in LinkedIn. And that kind of goes into a session we did a couple of weeks ago on the Sales Navigator and subscription services. But now you can see we've got the different notes, my different notebooks that are out there. I've got all the different tags that I'm using. I probably need to go in and do a little tag cleanup, to be honest with you, just because I think there's probably way too many, and I've got some typos and some duplicates and whatnot. But this has got some really good stuff in here where you can classify it, and then also if other people within your organization or folks that you work with are also using Evernote, you can even do some collaboration, somewhat like Google Docs, where you can go through and you can create a note, they can have access to it, and vice versa. So if we go up here and just do a search for Facebook, I can see, well, show me all the notes that have been tagged with Facebook, and I can go back to this and then hit my little search. And now here's the article that I just clipped like 30 seconds ago. And there's the note that I made. This would be great to share with my marketing friends. If I wanted to go ahead and make this a document that I could just print out and make it look really nice instead of printing it directly off of the, now you can see you've got a nice clean looking document where you could save that as a PDF, print it off, put it in a folder and take it with you if you want to just read it this way. I know some people still like having printed material. I'm one of them, so there's no shame in that. So just a cool way of taking your thoughts, taking information, taking stuff that you come across while you're traveling around, and just gives you the ability to, store it for later and make sure that it's available. So, Jeff, are you using anything similar to this from a note-taking or a web clipping or any of that type of functionality that you'd like to talk about?
I use Google Drive a lot. And I know Google Drive is not designed to be used like that, but Google Drive indexes everything. You've got the ability to put hashtags on documents in Google Drive. So I primarily use Google Drive. Now I will set up notebooks in OneNote, which is just the Microsoft Office version of Evernote for specific projects. And I used Evernote at one time and it had some great functionality, but I just had some challenges with it. And, sometimes when you have a challenge, you just decide to move on. And that's pretty much what happened with Evernote and me.
Yeah. So like you said, the best tool is the tool that works for you. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Yep. And I know there's a lot of people that I talk to that'll say similar. Yeah. I was saying that I'll talk to a lot of people when I'll explain this and they'll say, well, isn't that kind of just what with OneNote, what that does? And I've never used OneNote just because I started with Evernote, and I've got so much in there now making a change, even if OneNote might actually be better. It's probably not going to happen in my world, but I agree. I think it's kind of one of those 6 of one, half dozen type things. So
I think Evernote probably does a better job of doing handwriting recognition than any tool I know of.
Okay. And that's one of the things now that I've got an iOS device, my iPad. I know that the Evernote notebook, which not to be confused with LiveScribe and some of those little tools we've talked about before, but the Evernote notebook has got some capabilities on the printed page that make the iOS, at least the Apple Evernote app, do more than the Android. So I've not really paid attention to that a whole lot as far as handwriting recognition and what goes. But I do know if you're using an iPhone or an iPad and you are interested in scanning and handwriting recognition, it does work pretty slick. Next on my list is a cool little website called Doodle. And other than the fact that I sometimes feel kind of weird asking somebody to go doodle me on the internet, which could be taken a variety of different ways. Doodle.com is a service that I use that allows me to synchronize my availability to my calendar so that if somebody wants to set up time to have a conversation, instead of going back and forth and saying, well, I'm available Tuesday. Well, I can't meet Tuesday, but what about Wednesday? Well, Wednesday I could do 1 o'clock. Well, what about 4 o'clock? All that I do is I send somebody a link or I tell them to go to doodle.com/Eric Cook, and that gives them the ability to access my calendar. So I'm going to hop over and pull up an incognito browser just so that I'm not logged in. And if I go and you're interested in having a conversation or we want to set an appointment, you can go to doodle.com/Eric Cook, and this pulls up my page, get a little blurb about kind of how you actually use it, and you just say, hey, let's grab lunch, want to talk about a website, need to have a conversation about the upcoming conference, and then you can scroll through and you don't see what I'm doing, but you see that I am doing something. So if you wanted to get together Friday afternoon this week, that's probably not going to happen. So you can see that's pretty busy. So the rest of this week is pretty much packed, chock full. So then you can go to the next week, and this will pull, and you can see, oh, it looks like Friday the 17th, I've got some opening. So if you're interested, you could type in there, drag stuff around, and then send the meeting request, and that comes into my inbox. I get a calendar request. I can come back into the Doodle system and I can review it and say, oh, I actually had something already planned for that time, but I forgot to put it on my calendar, so I can deny. But it makes scheduling a whole lot easier than the whole back and forth. There was a service that Jeff and I used many moons ago called, do you remember Tungle? Tungle Me?
I do.
I think you're on. Yeah. So that was one of the very first entry points, at least at my level, of being able to use some sort of a calendaring system. But they ended up getting bought by BlackBerry, and BlackBerry deep sixed them and shut them down. And so they're no longer around. But this is a service that I really like. And it just makes it a whole lot easier for me to get together with people. So, so give it a shot. It's I pay a small amount. You can see that I branded it to the WSI name a little bit, so there are some premium elements here, but it's not really that expensive. And if you find yourself being challenged with booking appointments and scheduling things, this is a really nice tool that you may be interested in taking a peek at. Jeff, are you using any sort? I know you had mentioned a few other ones in past shows. Are you still using any sort of a scheduling tool on your end, or not?
I am not currently.
So I know there's a lot of other ones out there, Time Trade, and if you just Google for online calendar scheduling, you'll find a boatload of stuff. But I've been really pleased. Like I said, other than the goofy little name, but sometimes that also makes the person on the other end of the line chuckle a little bit too. I say, don't take offense to this, but I need you to just go online and doodle me, and use that comment with caution, because you never know who you're going to say that to that might take offense. But anyway, kind of a fun little way. The last tool that I've got that I wanted to share that I'm also going to mention is whether you are in a business and you have a website as part of your business, or you're a consultant like we are and you manage other people's businesses and their websites, and you need to know if they're going to be down, or maybe you want to double check on your competition, and when your competition's website goes down, we use a service called Uptime Robots, and there's a handful of other ones out there as well. You can use this for free, and you can get up to 50 different website monitors, and it will check them every 5 minutes. And if the website goes down, it'll send you a little email. I have it configured with If This Then That, which is a little applet-based notification kind of processing tool that will even call my phone when an email shows up from Uptime Robot, so you can do some really cool things with it. But at the very basic level, you can put your company's website, your competition's website, your customers' websites, whatever you want. You can put those in Uptime Robot, and if for some reason the site goes down, you'll get an email or a text message or both that'll tell you when there's a problem. And it gives you historical data and tells you all sorts of really good stuff that is nice to know and something that you might be interested. The dashboard's super user-friendly, very clean. You can see, it'll give you how many monitors you're using. But it's a great little tool. It doesn't take a whole lot of bandwidth. It's not bogging down your websites and causing Google Analytics to go crazy. So I like that about it as well. But this is a pretty cool little tool that we use. Fortunately, our websites don't go down very often, but every once in a while with spikes in traffic, if there's a delay in load time or something, it's just nice that if there is going to be a problem and there is going to be an issue, it's nice that we're able to know before customers before customers start getting phone calls and why is the site down, and we can already identify if it is a problem, contact our support team and get things fixed. So if you pay for the service, it's like, I don't know, 40 or 50 bucks a year. It is not that expensive. You get more than the 50 monitors, and you can actually have your sites checked every 60 seconds, which is where we're at. So every minute, all the sites that we have are being checked by the Uptime Robot system, so that if there is a problem, we very quickly know about it and can hop in and get things fixed very fast. So that's my last cool free tool that I am prepared to share with you all today. Jeff, you got any other little tools that you want to toss out there for consideration?
Let me think. Most everything that I'm using ththese days is tied into one of the other products that I use. For example, there are some Chrome extensions that tie in with the CRM system that I use in Sitely.
Yep.
I think the moral of the story is, especially if you use Chrome, if there's something you think to yourself, I wish I could do fill in the blank.
Yep.
Search for a Chrome tool to go along with it.
Yeah.
There are a ton of Chrome tools.
Yep.
You and I were talking a week or so ago. There's a product that I use called Ebates that I get a rebate of 1% or more on a bunch of shopping sites that I use, and there's a Chrome tool for that.
Yep. So they must be listening to me because, boom, there's my little Evernote. Made the top list today, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, these little Chrome extensions are really, really nice. You can see I got a few of them rolling up here, and that's not even all of them. So my challenge is, being the little digital pack rat that I am, I come across these little tools and I decide I want to add them, and then I realize that stuff's running in the background because it does degrade your performance a little bit. If they're doing stuff and doing things, then that takes processing time. So I occasionally will go through here and try to see, well, I haven't used this one in a while. What does this do? One tab, I'm not really using that. So then I can go ahead and right click and I can remove it, delete it, go into manage my extensions. So I resisted the urge of adding LinkedIn notifications because that's one more distraction that I don't need. But speaking of LinkedIn, I know I mentioned on the last show that we had, I did a temporary upgrade to the Sales Navigator version of LinkedIn. I think I'm going to keep it. I think I'm going to bite the bullet and pay the annual fee and get it activated. It incorporates into G Suite now. If you're a Sales Navigator user, they've got a little sidebar. They purchased a company called Reportive that that will give you a little bit of extra insight on an individual directly in your G Suite program. So if I'm getting ready to send Jeff an email, it'll show me what sort of activity he's had recently in LinkedIn, and it'll also give me if he's got any other social networking profiles out there under that same email address. And the thing that I also like about that Sales Navigator plugin is it also shows me who else we have in common, what groups we're also members of, and I'm betting pretty heavily that the Microsoft world is really going to start leveraging a lot of this LinkedIn data to try to make those digital conversations more relevant and meaningful as you're gaining information. And so even if you're not an active LinkedIn user pushing a lot of updates, you'll want to double check and make sure that at least the content that you have in your profile, where you went to school, your job title, your phone number, make sure that all that information is current. Because if somebody wants to get a hold of you, and that could be a potential business opportunity, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to know how they can track you down and hopefully hire you and give you some money to do some work for them. So I think I'm gonna bite the bullet, and I'm gonna try an annual license to Sales Navigator and see how it goes. I was hesitant to do that because it's going to be a decent little chunk of money, but using it over the last month since I got back from training, I've realized that there's some opportunities in here that I've been missing that I need to pay more attention to. So there's my little LinkedIn promo. So, all right. Well, Jeffrey, we'll wrap early. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Those of you that are here live, and we appreciate your time. And if you watch this or listen to it on replay, we appreciate that just as much. So we will close for today, and we'll look forward to seeing you down the road at freewebinarwednesdays.com on future webinars. So until then, have an awesome week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.